All right, so let's take a look at this case study where I'm going to look at the attendance of Golden Oaks High School and try and implement a plan or come up with a plan to improve that attendance and increase the value of attendance in the community as well as in the school and district. So first, let's just do an overview here of the case. So this is just a case summary. This section is going to kind of explain what's going on at Golden Oaks High School and kind of communicate the data from the case. So what, when, where, and who. So what's happening in the district? When is it happening? Where is it happening? Who is it happening to? And what do those who are involved in the situation have to say? So right now, the issue is what's happening is that there's increased attendance issues at Golden Oaks High School. The principal has looked at attendance records from the first semester. This is his first year being principal. So these are the first semester results. So we're talking after Christmas break. Golden Oaks High School is a middle income community near metropolitan area, so they would be considered suburban. This is typical high schoolers, 9th to 11th grade. The startling number here is that 659 out of their 965 students have more than 10 unexcused absences in the first semester. 5 of those students were chosen randomly to kind of review and maybe see what kind of issues are happening. And those that are involved, teachers are willing to excuse the absences. Admins and teachers are seemingly okay with exceptions, specifically the athletic director, who is technically in an administrative position. And some of the parents either, one, don't think attendance is an issue, or make excuses or give reasons why their students should miss school beyond the typical excused absences. So summarizing this data a little more specifically, first of all, first-year principal, he has been asked to address several problems. The biggest one that he's been asked to address by the district is the decrease in attendance or the attendance issues. Looking at that number from earlier, that turns out that 68% of those students have 10 or more absences in this school. This is the lowest attendance rate for the district. Some parents are under the impression that it's none of the school's business, while others actively make excuses for their students to miss. Teachers and admins have been willing to make exceptions up to this point. And currently, the policy says that students or teachers may take up to 10 points from students per quarter after they have reached 5 unexcused absences. However, what we're seeing now is that that's not really deterring anything. So let's move on to section 2, which is kind of the legality and the ethics of what's going on here. So this section is going to look at the current issues regarding the decisions that have been made and maybe look at some of the potential harms that come from that. So here are some specific details about each of the students pertaining to these legal and ethical issues. Karen is a junior who was recently married, but there's no counselor documentation. There's been no due diligence really on behalf of the counselors regarding why a junior in high school was married before she started her junior year, or why she's continuing to miss school on a frequent and patterned basis. She's missing on Mondays and Fridays consistently, which as a counselor should be able to see that pattern. Tyrone's parents take him on educational trips. They travel for work and think that he should go with them. As a result, he's an average student. He's not really failing, but he's not performing exemplary either. Christina is missing for church functions, but she's not making up the work. So there's not a balance between church and school. Regarding Christina, can we tell Christina not to participate in church functions? No. However, as a school district and as a parent, there needs to be a balance there between going to the church functions and being successful at school. Carl has been marked truant. His parents don't think attendance is the school's business, even though common law precedence is that attendance is the school's business, the welfare of the child. Truant officers should have done something about it at this point. And then John is currently a star athlete. He has physical therapy during the school day, but the athletic director is also excusing him to rest on game days as well. So looking further into these ethical issues, kind of explaining them. First of all, Karen's a minor. Ethically, the counselors have not done their due diligence. Carl's missing school at the discretion of his parents. The truancy officer did nothing about this. Okay, as a mandated reporter with the law regarding student attendance, the Prince v. Massachusetts case, the truancy officer did not act on the fact that his parents allowed him to skip school, and he's truant. The athletic director is directly violating the school and district policy, and he's showing favoritism to his athletes, allowing John to miss Fridays as well as 2 other days during the week. The 2 medical days are excused, but missing Fridays to rest could be considered or construed as an act of favoritism. And then Tyrone and Christina's homeroom teachers are both violating the school policy by excusing personal absences without principal approval. The policy specifically states that the principal should be approving student absences that go beyond the list of excused options. So Section 3 kind of takes this idea and puts it down into one sentence. It focuses the scope of what's going on, because there's a lot of information regarding who these people are, what's happening in the school district. So Section 3, my goal is to narrow this down into one sentence that will kind of give you a focus on what the scope of the problem is. So what's happening? School policy regarding attendance is not being enforced or is being disregarded completely, and this has resulted in an increase in absenteeism at Golden Oaks High. Currently, even though there's a consequence on paper, there really hasn't been any data to suggest that the consequences are, 1, helping, 2, or that the policy is even being enforced at all. None of the additional absences, based on the files that were presented, none of the additional absences came across the principal's desk, which means the policy is not being enforced or being regarded at this time, and that's where the biggest problem is. So let's detail some of these facts. So we're going to look at some of the objective facts regarding the people that are involved, unbiased, what's happening, what's going on. And this also goes into an overview of the place where this is happening, kind of the surroundings, the background, and it kind of gives an overview of the whole program itself, the school, who's involved, what the attendance policy is. So looking at the people, these are our 5 students that Mr. Rhodes pulled for us. Pretty varying range. You have male and female, 9th through 11th grade. He didn't pull any senior files, it looks like. We do have some grade information. We don't have any grade information on John. However, looking further into John's file, we can see that it's not just the athletic director who's kind of brushing off his absences, but his teachers are not reporting that his absences are excessive either. However, he is only missing in the afternoons. So his teachers in the morning, or his homeroom teacher, might not be keeping track of the absences that are happening in the afternoon. Carl comes from a lower income family. His parents didn't graduate high school, and they don't feel that attendance is an issue. If Carl wants to miss, Carl can miss. And Carl takes both VOTEC and traditional classes. Tyrone is an average student. However, he comes from an affluent family both of his parents travel for work, and he travels along with them. We've talked about Karen, married before her junior year, and she's typically an AB student and an NHS member, but currently she is not achieving A and B grades. Finally, Christina, she's our freshman. She has a very strong religious affiliation. All of her absences come from going to church retreats, and she has notes in her file from her minister to excuse her for those. However, she's not making up the work. She currently has below average academic performance. She has C's and D's in her classes and is missing tests and not making them up. So the program is the school that the students are in. So 965 students, grades 9 through 12, typical high school. Extracurriculars and sports are available. The current policy is that the excused absences are listed, and anything that's not listed in the excused absences must be excused by their principal ahead of time, not after the fact. And then after 5 unexcused absences, teachers are allowed or can take 10 points from a student's quarter grade. Okay, so teachers who are involved, they can take points after 5 unexcused absences. Homeroom teachers are currently excusing absences, and then no data has been shown or provided that shows that teachers are taking points or that taking points works to deter absenteeism. Administrative rules and clear policy says the principal must approve the extra absences, but there's no data to show support of the teachers or enforcement of the policy. Counselors make notes and files, but there's no sign of follow-up regarding attendance. Counselors really don't show any kind of involvement in the data collection or the attendance monitoring whatsoever. This is a suburban community near a metropolitan area, mostly middle class. There are some upper and lower income families. There are a lot of tenured teachers. These are teachers with 10 plus years in their positions. Not a lot of turnover in this district. Predominantly a low diversity district. However, there has been an influx of Hispanic and Asian families, which has increased diversity within the district, which could be taken into consideration in terms of religious affiliation or reasons that students might miss school, such as culture-specific holidays. Most families commute to the metropolitan area to work. Most of them work in industry. There are a few that have professional careers, and then there are some that manage small businesses as well. So what does all of this mean? So let's review and prioritize the current situation and really what should be a priority moving forward or to improve on this situation. So that means prioritizing ramifications, prioritizing stakeholder opinions, prioritizing student success. What is the most important thing that we can get from this situation and when we improve it? So review and priorities, improving student attendance is the overall goal here. Okay, we do need more information on why students are missing. We also need more information on why teachers are not consistent with the attendance policy. You can't reasonably make a decision without some of this information. So let's look at some potential options about improving student and school success. So looking at some potential options, there are 3 options here. The first option is just to leave it as is, gather more information, observe for the rest of the school year. Option 2 is to reiterate or really reinforce the policy that's already there. Option 3 is to develop a completely new policy, one that puts value on the attendance, one that involves counselors and admins on tracking and monitoring attendance records, and also getting feedback from parents, teachers, administrators on the attendance policy and what's working and what's not working. So now let's evaluate these options. What are some pros and cons for these options? Okay, we want everything to be equitable and we want it to be data informed. So if we're looking at data informed, option 1 is the best for data informed. However, the students that are already failing or already being absent are going to continue to suffer because of that. So pros and cons there, yeah, we're going to get more data, but is that really beneficial to the students? Option 2, the policy is already there. Everyone knows what the policy is. Okay, the cons are the counselors still wouldn't be involved. The grade deduction would still be optional and discretionary, which means it may or may not get enforced anyway. Okay, so we're reiterating what everybody's not doing. And then option 3, the pros are it supports teachers. It removes that discretion and that consequence from teachers. It involves all levels of school personnel. And the cons would be, 1, the decision is made with less data. There's potential backlash because of that, but that also opens up the door for post-monitoring because the data we have right now says what we're doing isn't working. So trying something different and collecting data from that to see if placing a consequence that equals the same amount of value as what attendance means to kids. Kids who aren't in school don't succeed. So if you're not at school the consequence has to be the same level of magnitude or the same weight as valuing that attendance, valuing your success. Right now, the 10 points, I don't think it necessarily does that. So the best option, now we have to, looking at these pros and cons, we have to decide what the best option is. So to choose the best option, it's going to be the best about school improvement. Okay, so our current data, still maintaining our data-informed decision-making, current data is showing what we're doing now is not successful. So we could reiterate that. We could go with option 2 and reiterate that. But the current data says that that policy is not working, because this was the policy that was in place before this first year principal. This is the same policy that's in place, and clearly teachers aren't following it. So the best option is going to be option 3. 1, it places value on attendance by instituting a consequence equivalent to the value. Okay, if you are my current school district, if you have 6 unexcused absences, you don't get credit for that semester. If you are not in school to participate in the classroom dynamic, which is part of your grade, which is part of the learning process, you don't get credit for that class. Okay, so in order to be successful, you have to be at school, and the consequence places the weight of the consequence weighs as much as the value of being at school. Students can still miss school for religious or personal reasons without bias from teachers or admins, as long as students have a plan to ensure academic success. So ahead of time, not only will they have to get it okayed through the principal ahead of time, they will have to have a plan where they're going to make up work, where they're going to make up tests, where they are communicating with their teachers about what they're doing. Okay, as long as students have that plan, regardless of what the absence reason is, the students still have a plan of action to improve or make up their work. The focus is still placed on academic success, and giving students this plan, holding them accountable, that's a life skill. Being accountable, or knowing that things come up and you're going to have to miss work, or you're going to have to miss a college class. Instituting this plan gives students an active role in the accountability of their schoolwork. It involves parents, it involves teachers, and by having it in writing that everyone agrees that the student is going to do what they need to do and understands how much they're going to have to do, it also lets the student decide if that absence is really the best choice. Okay. Option 3 also involves counselors and administrators. It gives them a more active role in finding attendance issues and patterns, and to relieve the stress of attendance tracking off of teachers. So instead of the homeroom teacher having to not only be a homeroom teacher, right now the homeroom teacher also has to keep track of absences. There are teachers that aren't regularly taking attendance or aren't regularly tracking attendance. If a student's counselor or a student's administrator, hey, notice you've been absent, 6 times this semester, what's going on? Counselors and administrators are in a better position to be able to contact parents, to be able to work with students, to find those underlying issues, to collect that data, and to make a choice using that data. So this plan, I think, is the best overall, because it is such a change and actually places the value top to bottom on attendance and kind of holds everybody accountable to the student success and the building success. So how would I implement this plan? The goal here is to take into account the well-being of students and adults involved. Okay, that means parents, that means teachers, that means admin and district level employees. But the goal is also improving and continuing data collection. The data includes attendance data, it includes prospective data regarding the implementation of this plan before and after, and academic performance data. Is increasing attendance truly beneficial for the students? So doing this, it involves stakeholders at all levels as well. So the first step is going to be to discuss the plan and goals with the school board and with the superintendent. Since the superintendent is the one who came in and said, hey, this needs to change, can you help? The first place to start is to discuss this idea with the superintendent and get feedback there. and get their support. It's always good to have your district in your corner to support you in the decisions that you're making. After discussing it with the board and making any adjustments there, hold a meeting to discuss the policy changes with staff. Okay, have a big general meeting that says, hey, these are the new policies. We've discussed it with the board. Here's what we're going to do. And kind of have a discussion there. What things have you as the principal not thought about? Have your counselors, have your other administrators, have your teachers tell you what will and will not work. Maybe some better changes. Have them ask questions. How is this going to work, so that you can provide more data to them. Then after you've kind of fine-tuned the plan to fit the specific needs of your building, I would provide role-specific training. So how do counselors collect the data? What management system are we going to use to keep track of attendance? Okay, are we doing it on paper and calling the office? Are we using something like Skyward or another learning management system to keep track of attendance? And talk with administrators, counselors, teachers on what the plan of makeup looks like, what needs to be done once a student reaches the decided number of unexcused absences. Take out the discretionary piece. If it's this many absences, here's the consequence. Take out the optional, take out the favoritism, make it unbiased, make it equitable. Then you're going to release the information to the parents and students through normal means. Our school district uses a website. We also push it out to parent emails and student emails, as well as posting it on our social media and website. Release it that way through normal means. That way, if parents have questions, they can get in contact with the district. They can get in contact with the building. Okay, make sure when that information is released, that your contact information is available for parents who have questions or who have feedback, or for parents who just want more information. Then once school starts, in order to really have that conversation with students, have the homeroom teachers go over the new attendance policy. That way they can answer questions specifically with their students and show them an example of the makeup plan, what they have to do if they do want to miss school because of vacation, or if they want to go on religious retreats, or there's a specific holiday unique to their culture. Here's the makeup plan that they can use and how they need to fill it out, so that they can either, one, get that absence approved, or two, decide if maybe that absence isn't the best thing for them. And then the final step, and this is probably one of the most important steps, is to continue the data collection. To continue to monitor student attendance and make changes and adaptations based on the data that comes from this policy. So this data is going to include feedback surveys from parents and students and teachers. Okay, everyone who's involved, get some feedback. Okay, keep track of attendance numbers. Is attendance still decreasing? Or are students coming to school knowing that if they don't come to school, the consequences match that important? Okay, also we're going to look at student achievement data. If students are coming to school more, are their grades improving? Okay, is that classroom dynamic, is being here truly helping the students? We take data from research all over the place that says students being in school and students attending school improves their academic achievement. But in this situation, we have to apply it to our own school, our own data. We have to have data that's unique to our students in our given situation. Without that unique data, it's hard to say if something is truly working for a specific situation. So in order to see if this plan is working, we have to continue to monitor data that is produced because of that. So finally, how does this relate? How does this process, how does this plan relate to me as an educational leader? So thinking about the standards that were required for this assignment, I'm going to highlight just how this plan, or how my plan, takes into account the things that are related to these standards as an educational leader. So the NELP Standard 6, just for operation management, this plan focuses on future success of students and the district by valuing attendance, by putting value on the attendance. It improves data collection by involving several tiers of school staff. Okay, now you have counselors and admins who are also keeping track. You have data, you have feedback data, you have academic achievement data. Okay, you have different types of data all coming in to focus on what are the impacts of attendance and what is impacting attendance. It involves all levels of stakeholders. The district wants to see attendance improved. The school wants students to be successful. Students want to be successful. Okay, the makeup plan is completely unbiased for students. Okay, as long as a student can show that they have a plan to make up their assignments or a plan to take their tests ahead of time or work it out with the teacher to make up those tests, then their absence, they've looked at that accountability skill. They've looked at making those adult choices of prioritizing things based on those plans. There's no favoritism where John can miss school because of a game, but Tyrone can't, or where Christina leaves for church every week, but we're concerned that Karen's missing every Monday and Friday for different reasons. So this way, if a student knows they're going to miss something, this plan is unbiased and equitable to all students and can be applied to all students without any bias coming in or discrimination or favoritism, anything that might be an ethical or legal concern. And then looking at component 6.2, attendance tracking and pattern monitoring compared with academic achievement is being paired with academic achievement to monitor the success of the policy. So the goal of the policy is to improve attendance, and the goal of improving attendance is to improve academic achievement, improve student learning and student success and district success. So taking those and cycling them into a data cycle and how they influence each other focuses on making a data-formed and equitable plan. Data regarding the attendance and achievement provided before the policy is presented to show the importance of it. Okay, so it's still a data-informed decision that has been evaluated and developed based on the data that shows that what's going on right now is unsuccessful. And then finally, data will continue to come in and will continue to influence this policy because we're getting that perception data as well as that academic data to gauge, one, the acceptance of the policies, two, potential changes that need to be made from both students, teachers, and school level employees and district level employees. Is this working? Is this making our students successful? Is this making our school more successful? So that evaluation piece and that development piece comes from this data cycle that will be established with this policy. So overall, I think that the best plan here is to change it up. The data shows that the current policy is not working. Supporting that with data, presenting that to parents and students and faculty, that what's happening right now isn't working. 68% of the students aren't coming to school on a consistent basis. So then taking that data and showing them how that affects academic achievement, creating an infographic or creating a spreadsheet with pivot tables that shows, well, if you look, here's what happens. This kid has missed 54 days of school and they're failing all of their classes. This kid has perfect attendance and they have straight A's and, don't have any issues and are successful in their classes. So having data like that ahead of time and research ahead of time and presenting that in a way that other people can understand, and then presenting this plan that says, okay, let's improve attendance. Here's how we're going to do it. Attendance is valuable. Here's a consequence that shows how valuable attendance is. 10 points off of a quarter grade isn't going to be detrimental to a student. However, putting an attendance consequence that is detrimental to a student having to retake a class because they have chosen not to come to school shows that value. Then we take that data, we take that policy, and we see how it's working. We get feedback from everyone involved and see if it's working, and then make changes from there. Get feedback, create that open loop of collaboration and that open loop of data to see and improve and develop new ways to handle the situation. Okay, maybe, 6 absences isn't enough. Maybe we need to increase the number of absences before we take the credit. Or maybe we only take part of the credit. If they mix 6 6 absences in a quarter, then they just have to retake that quarter, just depending on what feedback we get. So then it opens the door for that collaboration. And you can take that collaboration beyond that. If another school in the district or a school in another district is having an attendance issue and ours is working, that's something that they can model off of. So then we can increase that capacity to use data and use information and kind of set up this data-informed way of thinking and disseminate that beyond the walls of our building. So I think overall, this assignment has really kind of opened my eyes to what it takes to plan for something that is going to involve a lot of people, and the importance of data and all types of data and being able to make those decisions.